Hello, BookTube. And this is the first episode of Desert Island Books. And with me for our first castaway is Mark from his BookTube channel, Book Time with Elvis. Thank you for being the first, Mark.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, do you have? The idea is to have you're going to be on a desert island, and you're going to have 8 books, 1 album, and 1 luxury item. Do you have those with you?
I do indeed.
Okay, so let's start off with your first book. What would you have your first book? Oh, well, actually, first of all, tell us something about yourself, your channel, and so forth.
Okay, so my name is Mark. I'm originally from England. I live now in the Czech Republic. I've been here 10 years. I teach English at a local, what they call basic school. So it kind of combines elements of the primary school and secondary school. So it's from the age of 6 to 15. I'm also lucky that I get to teach other subjects in English. So I teach art, history, geography, and biology, which is kind of good fun, but it's only like small segments of those lessons there. I live here alone with my dog, Elvis, and hence why my channel name is Book Time with Elvis, because of course, every time I'm reading a book, my faithful companion is usually beside me, though I notice since we started this video, he hasn't appeared yet, which is unusual because every time I turn my attention to something online, he usually comes running in trying to take my attention off it. When I have lessons online, for example, he'll always come running in with a toy. So he must be pretty tired after his walk. So my channel is fairly eclectic. I mean, I don't specialize in any particular genre. I do very much like nonfiction, as I did very much like nonfiction. Though having been on BookTube, I find I'm reading a lot more fiction, a lot more novels than I would have read perhaps normally, and it's been a great experience.
Okay, and what are your 8 books then, or your first book, I guess?
Well, my first book will come as no surprise to anyone who knows me or watches my channel. It is 3 Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome. It is probably my favorite book of all time. It remains rather a big favorite of my mother's, and she would have been the one who introduced it to me. I was trying to think when I first heard of it, and it might have been due to the fact that because I used to live, I was brought up in Bermuda for most of my childhood, and we used to come back to the UK to visit my grandmother, and she lived not very far from Hampton Court and Hampton Court Palace. And I remember when we visited it, my mother telling me about this book, because there's a very funny episode in this book where one of the characters gets lost along with a few other people in the maze at Hampton Court. So that kind of was my first introduction to the book. And I have this copy here, but I've got several copies, and I'm actually lucky enough to have a first edition copy, which I didn't pull out because I wouldn't necessarily want to take that one to the island, although because it is in quite fragile state. But what I really like about that copy is that I think it's been in my family since publication, because my 2 times great grandfather wrote his name in it. So and because of its condition and the fact it's actually been rebound, makes me think that at least he probably bought it and kept it. And then my all the way down through to my grandfather kept it as well. So yeah, but it's a fantastic book, and I probably don't need to say too much about it because it is one that I'm known to talk a lot about. So if you want to know any more about it, you can of course visit my channel and look at those videos about it, which I've done. But otherwise, that's book number 1. Okay. And moving to book number 2.
Yep.
Will be Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which is a strong contender as well for one of my favorite books of all time. I'd have to say the 2 of them, it's quite hard sometimes to choose, but I will go with this one as a very very close second. The book has also special memories for me from a young child. I used to visit this. They were like a third set of grandparents to me, friends of my mother, and the husband. He absolutely loved this book. He loved also the film, the 1950s Disney film, and every time I visited them, we would sit down and watch it together. And he would read the book to me as well, and he would always do the voices. He did a great Long John Silver impression, and yeah, it's just one of those books I keep coming back to, and I feel, that I get. It feels strange saying you can get something new from it each time, but I enjoy it each time I read it as much as the first time I read it, even when I know what's coming. I suppose my imagination has been tainted a little bit because of the film. I can only ever see Robert Newton as Long John Silver, so of course I've got his voice going over my head the whole time. But yeah, it's a fantastic book and probably quite apt one to take on a desert island. I kind of hope I don't end up like Ben Gunn, going mad and desperate for cheese. I did actually think about a massive supply of cheddar cheese as my luxury item, but I chose something different. But yeah, no, it's really a fantastic book, and I think it would be great fun to read it in context of a desert island.
Yeah, and I like what you say about that. Every time you read it, you find something new in it or nuances, and I definitely feel that way with Three Men in a Boat. That every time I reread that, I get a good chuckle out of it, and just revisiting, especially the them getting lost in the maze is just ludicrous, but it's just fun. It's just fun reading, and it's a good way to turn your brain off in a sense and just enjoy things. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes you need that escapism, don't you? And it was really nice because last summer I did a little read along of Three Men in a Boat with some the people I know from BookTube, and for a lot of them it was their first reading, and the fact that they did all enjoy it really made me happy. Because there'd be nothing worse than if it's like, this is my absolutely favorite book. What did you think about it? And they go, oh, it was all right, but they were all quite enthusiastic about it, and yeah, that really made my day, to be honest.
that's good.
Yeah, it's a shame. As I was saying, it's a shame I haven't read Robinson Crusoe, because I think that would be a good one to take. But part of my third book does take place on an island, or at least an island is very important to it, and it's a big one, which is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. And it's the unabridged one. And I was saying to Sean earlier that worst case scenario, I could probably use it in hunting some game, to wallop them over the heads. But it is a fantastic book, and it's funny because I only read it, I think 3 or 4 years ago, one summer, and I couldn't put it down. But it's one of those books that seems to be so prevalent in our culture or society that it, or at least so much about it, even if you haven't read it. Whether it's through film, like or the series, I really like the Gérard Depardieu, the French series was really good, and certainly I watched that, and yeah, it was strange. I mean, maybe I had read like a children's version of it before. I mean, there were a lot of books published by Ladybird Books, I think, if you know them. They're small hardcover books, and sometimes you could buy them with an audio tape. Now, Treasure Island was certainly one where I had that Ladybird book of it with the tape, and it was fantastic. I think maybe I had one of this. Of course, something like that is very different to reading the full work, which is, I can't remember how many thousand pages it is, like 1,200 and something. I really want to reread it, but finding the time, especially with so many new things to read, is difficult. Whereas if I'm stuck on an island with a limited supply of books, then no doubt it'll be reread quite a few times.
Yeah, I enjoyed it myself. When I first read it, I read it in a abridged version, but I didn't know it was abridged when I first read it. I got it out of the school library. I must have been like 12, 11 or 12 years old and just loved it. And then the teacher said that it was, oh, you've read the abridged version. I think I had to ask what that meant. And I go, oh, there's more? And, and I needed to get it. So I badgered the library, and they bought an unabridged version for me so I could read it. And I just sat there as soon as I grabbed it. And I think I read it in like, a week, but every moment, every minute that I had extra, I was reading it because I loved it so much. And I'm looking forward to a reread as well soon.
No, it is a great book, but I mean, I think even the abridged version is like 800 pages or something. It's quite big.
I don't remember. All I remembered was that I enjoyed it,
Uh,
and finding out that there's more of it. I wanted more, and even when I think I finished this one, I'm going, and I think I had to ask, is that all?
yeah, well, I mean, it is. Yeah, it is certainly required reading. I think for anyone, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's part of
Stephen Fry did a modern version of it. I can't remember the full title. It just dawned on me. Is it tennis balls in their course? Is there something like that? I
Well,
can't remember now.
maybe.
He did a modern version of it, which was interesting. He did a
Uh-huh.
he did a modern version. So if anybody's interested, I'll see if I can remember to get the title and put it down in the description if anybody's interested.
Well, I mean, it's the granddaddy of revenge stories, isn't it?
It is.
Really, I mean, you know, it's probably inspired a lot of offshoots. Well, I'll stick with the Frenchman because the next book is also a Frenchman, although it is about an Englishman, which is Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. It's a book like Treasure Island, I guess, like The Count of Monte Cristo, that I came to through film or television. As a kid, going back to the Treasure Island film, I mentioned that Long John Silver was played by Robert Newton, and looking around, and I found an old VHS copy in the local video store of Around the World in 80 Days with David Niven and Robert Newton. And I think it was Robert Newton's last film because he suffered terribly from alcoholism, and David Niven really had to vouch for him to get him on the set for this. But he played Inspector Fix, and the guy who pursues Phileas Fogg pretty much around the world. And I really enjoyed it, and I thought, well, it's a book. I love the film. I should read the book. And it's one of those where I can again read, reread, always spot some little thing that I didn't maybe notice before, or I'd forgotten about, and it's fresh. You can read these old books like Treasure Island, Around the World in 80 Days, and it just, I don't know, they're just exciting. They're really, what's the word? I can't think. Just really engaging, and it doesn't matter how often I pick them up. I just think, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So if you told me tomorrow you have to read Around the World, yeah, sure, yeah, I don't mind. I'll read it again. It's not a problem. So yeah, excellent book.
Yeah, and I like the idea of you bringing in film there too, because I've always thought and said that when I watch a film, I think of books, as an extension of it for
Mhm.
either the source material or for the actors, the directors, the studio, anything like that, or the cinematography, sometimes the music, uh, but also uh, the period. Like if it happens to be set in a historical period, it's like sometimes like when I've watched that film for the first time, it's something new, and I want to then learn about the subject matter or the history that's around that. Is it accurate, and things like that. And I think your next one might be a perfect example of that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And that is one of my favorite biographies, and it's the biography of Shaka Zulu by E.A. Ritter. And it talks about the warrior king Shaka Zulu and the rise of the Zulu Empire in the late 18th, early 19th century. And yes, I came to it again through television at first, and then through film, because when I was about 6-7 years old, at 86, 87, there was a TV miniseries on Shaka Zulu. Absolutely fantastic miniseries, really captured my imagination. I'd never seen anything like it before. I'd never seen, well, I think it was really my first contact, or at least conscious contact, with Africa, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but I didn't read this until years later. But after watching Shaka Zulu, I caught chickenpox, and I was lying up. I was home for a couple of weeks, and I was well enough to kind of, walk around and do stuff, but not to go to school. And I rewatched some of this series on VHS, and my grandmother was staying, and she said, "Oh, this is great. Have you ever seen the film Zulu?" I'm like, no. What is this? What is this mysterious film you speak of? And so my dad went to the local video shop, the video rental shop in Bermuda, and he rented the film Zulu. And it became a film that I watched religiously almost every year, probably for the next 20 years or more. And even now, I will still watch it. I might not always finish it, but I will still at least start it or skip to my favorite bits and watch it. So it started a real love affair for the Zulus with me, and the whole story behind them and their culture. Because of that, the publishers here, I came across, I can't remember what the book was, but I came across a book, and it was by this publisher, Green Hill Books. I'm not sure they exist anymore, but they used to publish a lot of military and historic texts that, or republish in the case of this, probably, that maybe fallen out of print, or weren't in the normal sphere. And they used to send me their catalog, and I remember going through the catalog, and I saw this. I was like, "Oh, Shaka Zulu! I love Shaka Zulu." So I have to get it. And I first read it when I was 14. We had a school project where we had to, everybody had to read a biography or autobiography over the summer. And I was, wondering what to read. And I looked at my shelf and said, "Yeah, I'm going to read this." And I read it. I was blown away. And also I was surprised how much the miniseries was quite similar to this. So I think, they must have used this for quite a lot of their source material. And I know Ritter did spend a lot of time speaking with Zulu people and learning about, the myths and things that surrounded the birth and legend of Shaka. But it's a fantastic book, and very much due a reread for me. I think I read it last time maybe 10 years ago, so it's been a while. But now, having dusted it off for this Castaway session, I think definitely it's going to be reread over the summer. But certainly reread on the island, of course. So yeah.
Yes, well, we both share the love of sort of the Zulu Wars and the Zulu history, and that's that I've always have, and it's always been there with me, but every so often it sort of bubbles to the surface. And now watching you hold that up, it really gets me wanting to either reread that or something else, because I mentioned I have a book by Ian Knight, Rourke Drift, that's with the archaeology that was involved there, and I've been really itching to get to that. So thanks for adding to my TBR, Mark.
It's a pleasure. And I mean that it is quite impressive as well, the TBR you can build from Zulu books alone. I mean, it is really, it feels like it's a niche area, but then when you see how much is published on the Zulu Wars and the Zulu people, it's great. I mean, I only read I think last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember the name. You'll know it, and you've probably read it. Uh, Washing the Spears in
Yes.
Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic book.
It is.
Fantastic. I'd never come across, but it's a real in-depth history of uh, the Zulu story, really, and more recently than that, actually. And it was a shame, because if I could have taken, like the e-reader to the island and taken one of these like Delphi complete works, I would have taken like Rider Haggard, yeah, because I've started reading H. Rider Haggard's works from beginning to end, but I'm only, I think, 5 or 6 books in. But the Zulus are everywhere in his books.
Yeah.
He tells a really good story about them. And okay, yes, uh, there are a few problems with the language he employs, but I get the impression, regardless even of that he has a respect for them. He has a respect for their culture and their history. So yeah, if you want a bit of excitement, you can't go wrong with Zulu books, whatever they're.
Yeah. Now you've touched on something else. I've been thinking of doing the similar with the H. Rider Haggard, so I might have to catch up with you, and maybe we'll talk about that later.
Definitely. Okay, next one. Next one's a bit different. I've gone for a strange one. It's a compendium, I suppose, more than a book, a miscellany. The Pocket Dangerous Books for Boys, Things to Know. Now, there were others I could have chosen, but I wanted a little bit of variety, and this book has that. It's kind of a mishmash of different topics, different things I could dip in and out of between hunting for iguanas or whatever else the food source would be on this island. It covers things such as extraordinary stories. So it has these short stories about extraordinary events, including like Scott of the Antarctic, the story behind Admiral Lord Nelson. Then there are things like the 12 Tables of Roman Law, 10 Commandments, how to write codes and ciphers, which may come in handy. You never know. Things like the laws of football, the laws of cricket, understanding English grammar, the laws of rugby, all sorts of things. Famous battles, how to set trip wires. That could be useful if you're hunting your food. Stories of the golden age of piracy, and many, many other things. Poems every boy should know, Latin every boy should know. Probably in its idea, it's outdated, of course. There's no reason it necessarily has to be just for boys, but I think the author even says that it's not really. He's not apologizing for it. He's doing an homage to a genre that existed, back in probably before the 1950s, and why not? I think there is a companion. I don't know if it's called Dangerous, but there is a companion book for girls, so it has kind of evened things out a bit. And of course, nothing's to stop a girl reading this. But I think it would be something a bit fun that I could just kind of, carry around with me when I'm out for a stroll or something like that, or on the island, and just pull it out of my ragged pocket and read a little bit before going back and doing something else. So
Waiting for the fish to fry on the open fire.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Learn British flag naval signals while waiting for my fish to fry. Exactly right. So the next one definitely is not super portable, and it is the complete Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I love Sherlock Holmes. I was fairly new to him as an adult reader. And what I mean by that is I knew of him as a kid. I had experience of him as a child because my father was a very big Sherlock Holmes fan, but I never actually read the stories myself. So when I was little, my dad, he traveled a lot, and before he went on a business trip, he used to record a story on a cassette tape. One for me, one for my sister, and very often he would choose a story by about Sherlock Holmes, and sometimes if he didn't have that to read from, he would come up with his own Sherlock Holmes story, and I think he did it really well. Of course, I'm bound to say that, but I never noticed that there were any discrepancies between the real ones and the ones he would kind of come up with, and it was just really nice. I used to wake up early, knowing that when he left during the night or early in the morning to go to the airport, that on the desk there would be like a little note, and then there would be the cassette tape. One maybe says for Mark, the other for Claire, my sister. And there'd always be a message as well. So there was always like the story, and then it was like, be a good boy for your mum, that kind of stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, okay. Because, living on Bermuda, it wasn't necessarily, the business trips weren't like just, popping to, the nearby city for a day. Maybe it would be a week's business trip, or more, which when you're little, it's quite a long time. So so I think that would be a good one, definitely, to have with me.
Yeah, that would definitely be on my list as well. And I think I'm suspecting it'll be on many people's list as we go along here with this series. Hopefully,
Well, I think it's good value.
yeah,
Because you can get all of the books and stories in one edition. It's not super huge. I mean, it's not small, and actually, this one's all right because it's not. It's all. It's not one of these ones split into two columns. Yeah, it's not like the complete works of Shakespeare or something where you need a microphone, a magnifying glass to read it, and it is actually quite readable, and yeah, it's okay. Yeah, quite a few, 1,000 something pages, but yeah, no,
yeah. Like for this, I was perfectly happy to have omnibuses or anything like that, but just not like a 20-volume set and call it
yeah,
one volume. But if it's an omnibus of 3 volumes, say, you can count those as 3 books if you want to, and there could be 50 books in those, and I'm happy with that. But each book by itself be called something, and that definitely is worthwhile because that's about the same size as Count of Monte Cristo. So why
yeah,
not?
yeah. Why not? Indeed, why not?
Yeah,
Indeed, exactly right. And the fact as well, it's got a few, quite a lot of shorter stories in it as well. You can, again, dip in and out of it, and not have to. I don't know why I'm so bothered about dipping in and out. I've got, probably got not much else to do on the island, so I could just read, read, and read. But yeah. And the last of the books we come to is another biography. I haven't got. I believe they have a version which is like this size, yeah, similar to Shaka Zulu in size. But I ordered this one because of the illustrations and pictures in it, and it's a biography of Mozart, the man revealed by John Suchet, who is, of course, the brother of David Suchet, the actor who plays Poirot. Although that has nothing to do with the book, of course. John Suchet used to be a newsreader for, I think, ITV, ITN News, maybe in England. I don't think it was the BBC. I might be wrong, but again, doesn't really matter. But he started a second career, and that career was, I think, working at the time maybe for Classic FM. But he started writing musical biographies of composers. And he's done Beethoven, he's done Strauss, Tchaikovsky, maybe some others I can't remember, but he did Mozart. And I read it first as an ebook, and I absolutely loved it. It's such an interesting biography of an extremely interesting man, and I love his music as well. So that was another impetus to read it and see how he wrote some of the amazing pieces he did write. I first came to Mozart actually also through film, going back to that topic again. When I was probably about 9 or 10, I had a really fantastic music teacher, at school, and she introduced me to classical music, and instilled this love for classical music, which still endures, even now, 30 something years later. To the point, like, I remember the first birthday or first Christmas after these lessons, I asked my parents, or Father Christmas, Santa Claus, whoever, to bring me cassette tapes of classical composers. I remember my grandmother actually did buy me this cassette box set of like the great composers. So it's like, Mozart, Wagner, Brahms, Beethoven, on and on. Yeah, there was probably about, I don't know, 10 different cassettes in there. And when I think it was towards the end of term, she decided to put on a film, and the film was the film Amadeus, starring Tom Hulce, is it? I think Tom Hulce as Mozart, and there's Roy Dotrice in there as his father, and Jeffrey Jones as the emperor, and all sorts. And it was for me, a magical film. I remember after watching it at school, I went home and told my parents about it, and they said, "Oh, it sounds really good." And so we went to the video shop, and instead of renting Zulu, which, as I said, I probably did quite often, we rented Amadeus as well, and we watched it as a family, and they really enjoyed it too. Of course, F. Murray Abraham as well. He's Salieri. Of course, it's a fictional portrayal, yeah, which for years I didn't realize it until I was again at school, but this time I'm 17 years old, and we're doing the play by Peter Shaffer, and that's of course what the film was based on, and it's very different, of course, to his real life, but the book, as I said, just came to me. I think it's interesting how we might be inspired to watch films because we've read the book, and we don't hear enough people talking about reading books because they were inspired by the film. And I think certainly that's something that we're both experiencing.
Yeah, definitely, because I enjoy now. Well, it's been a thought for many years, but I'm indulging in it now with going back after the films and realizing, as we were talking earlier, that there's some films we never knew that were based on a book, and it's very interesting. Oh, I wonder what that's like then. I wonder what what they've done for that. What they've changed. Things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, it links nicely in. I guess my last book links nicely into my album, or my CD that I've chosen. The CD I went for is actually by Mozart. It doesn't necessarily have to be this recording, but it's the only one I have a physical copy of. I have different recordings through MP3s or whatever, and it's the Marriage of Figaro, or the Nozze di Figaro, by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Yeah, I can listen to this. Well, it doesn't matter how many times I listen to it, really. I like a lot of the books I mentioned, I can come back to this and I hear something new. I find out something new, and I never get sick of it. I like almost every aria that is sung in it. I like all the the instrumental pieces. There's nothing in here that bores me ever. I've seen several productions on the television, or I've downloaded different ones. I've watched different ones on YouTube. I've listened to many different versions. I've heard it in English. I've heard it in even German, and of course, I think it's best in Italian, its original language. Although, of course, Mozart was a German speaker, he did write it in Italian, based off a book, actually, I think, by Beaumarchais, which was a very controversial book in France, and some say it was like not a cause, but maybe perhaps in some ways a contributor to the problems that came later with the French Revolution. Again, again, the film Amadeus introduced me to this, and what I think is nice or kind of interesting from a personal point of view is the different connections that are connected with this and me and the country I live in and all sorts of different things. Is because the film Amadeus was directed by Milos Forman, who was a Czech film producer, film director, sorry, who went on and I can't remember, he did make some other big films, maybe One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, was that him maybe? I can't remember. But
I remember.
yeah, but he did some big films, and Amadeus was one of them. And he filmed Amadeus in this beautiful, or parts of Amadeus in this beautiful theater in Prague called the Estates Theater. And I was lucky enough to go there a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, to watch a production of The Marriage of Figaro. So for me, it was almost an emotional moment because, all those years ago, as a 10-year-old kid on a small island in the Atlantic, and, with this, Irish music teacher woman introducing me to this film that gave me a love of both, well, most of Mozart's stuff, a love of learning about his life and a huge love for this opera, to then go to see the opera in the place where the film was filmed. But then what added, the kind of icing on the cake was not that theater is actually one of probably the only place still intact where Mozart really did perform. So, his, I don't know what to say his DNA is there, but it probably still is. Yeah. I mean, if you can't get rid of it, I don't know. He premiered his opera Don Giovanni there, and and it was just magical. It was just so magical to think. It's almost been like one of those. I don't know. Sometimes maybe you can see these kind of connections or small journeys in life that kind of come to maybe it has a definite beginning and end. Now, it ended in some respect, but it also does continue. I mean, I would go back tomorrow and watch it again. It was fantastic, but yeah, I probably wouldn't have the same emotion that I felt, after all those years sitting in a place from a film that I knew so well, listening to my favorite pieces of music by my favorite composer. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, that's why I sometimes say there's ghosts. There's always ghosts, and I don't mean it in a sort of so much supernatural sense, but it's just, yeah, there's a lingering of these things in places, I think, and somehow there are connections, as you say, and it's wonderful when they do dovetail and come together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I guess our final piece is your luxury item.
So, yes, my luxury item. Well, I wasn't sure with this one. It all depends on your definition of item. So, if I can get away and people aren't upset with me classing him as an item, then my luxury item would, of course, be Elvis, my dog, who unfortunately isn't in the room at the moment. Otherwise, he wouldn't like me to hold him up anyway. He doesn't like that so much. But, I was umming and ahhing about it because part of me was like, do I want to condemn him to living on a desert island with me? Because, he doesn't like the heat very much. He's quite a hairy dog. But then I thought, well, he would probably miss me and I would certainly miss him. So it might be best if we were there together. So if I was allowed to class him as a luxury item, then definitely it would be him. If, however, the spirit of the thing should be something inanimate, I was thinking about perhaps a picture of Elvis, but then I thought to myself, well, no. If I'm ever likely to take a trip that will land me on a desert island, I could get a tattoo, so then it will be on me, and I don't have to count it as anything. And I thought just something useful, a blade of some sort. So a really super high tech, amazing Swiss Army knife, I think, would be my inanimate luxury item that I would take with me, because it would have everything well, not everything you need, but it has a lot of stuff on there that would come in useful. And certainly, I think you would need a blade of some sort, on an island, whether it comes to just food and
Well,
shelter. And
in this case, we'll allow Elvis, and we'll allow him to take one item along, and it'll be the Swiss Army knife.
oh, that's all right then. I'm not
And
sure it
I
would.
think
I'm not sure it would though. I think it would be a chick. It'd be like this toy chicken he has if he had a choice. But but yeah, we'll go with the Swiss Army knife.
I think any dog would love to be on a beach like that, and the water all the time, and nobody around.
And
And
of course, with their owner, or fur daddy, or whatever people call them these days, 24/7. Yeah, because I mean, I go out to work here, whereas there would be together all the time. So, it would, in
yep,
that respect, it would be nice. Yeah, and plus, to think of the security that a dog would give you,
yeah.
if any, Man Friday cannibal style people start coming along and causing problems. You've got an early warning system, help you with hunting if you have to hunt to get your food. Problem is, I'm not sure I could kill anything. I mean, I would struggle even with a fish, to be honest. But if you're in that situation, who knows?
Oh, probably. I'm sure there'll be lots of fruit.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just I just have to promise Elvis that it doesn't end with me eating him, or vice
Yeah.
versa. Who knows? Yeah, he might decide that's the end of me. So yeah.
So yeah, well, thanks very much, Mark, for participating and being the first
Pleasure.
pathway. Tell us something a little more of what you're doing on your channel at the moment, or any upcoming plans. And again, I will put Mark's information and the link to his channel down below in the description box.
Yeah, to be honest, my channel slowed down a little bit with work. School was quite busy here after Christmas. We had, we were affected a little bit, of course, by the events in Ukraine, because we ended up having new students, which we wouldn't normally have had. And it meant, trying to come up with lessons and things to try and help them catch up. In the event, well, as it turned out, that wasn't necessary, but I still put in the time doing it, because they ended up still coming to school but taking their lesson. I mean, it's really bizarre. They come to school and they sit in the computer room and they have lessons with their teacher or teachers. Either they're refugees in another country, or they're sometimes in a bunker in Ukraine giving these lessons still online. Yeah, so it's a bit crazy. And so yeah, that's been quite busy. And then obviously things to do with I'm trying to build a house. If it starts, it should start sometime soon, and that's taken up my time as well. But I've been participating this month in Michael K. Vaughan's brainchild of the June on the Range, which of course you're in as well, and that's been absolutely fantastic. I think you could probably tell from the books I showed that I would probably like westerns, but I'd never read any. I'd seen obviously films, but I'd never read a western, and I can't believe it. I feel like saying, where have you been? Where have you been all my life, kind of thing, because I've just devoured so many of them. Regarding my channel and events, I will try. I mean, I'm going to try and come up with something. I'll probably take part in at least one reading of a Jane Austen book next month, because of course it's Jane Austen July. I read my first ever one last year, which was Northanger Abbey. This year I probably will do Emma, maybe, or Pride and Prejudice, because I do actually have both here. And then I am tempted in joining this Garb August thing. I've been looking around and found a few contenders for that. On my own side, I think we'll see some increased output during the summer, because I'm not going anywhere and I will have 2 months off and I will be here. So I hope to dedicate time to maybe some reorganization of my channel in terms of some of the things I do. I want to come up with some more maybe regular slots, something like this, which you are making as a regular slot, something that I can do as well, which would be fairly regular. I had a few attempts previously. I did this thing, Wordy Wednesday, where I used to look at
Yeah, I like that one.
Dr.
Yeah,
Johnson and stuff.
yeah.
It was great. So maybe something along those lines. Maybe something a bit history based, because I do love my history.
Zulus. Let's do a Zulu timeline.
But
I'll be
that's
there
it.
with you.
Zulu Timber or something like that. Yeah, for September. Who knows? Could do. Yeah, or Zulai.
Yeah, that works. It's literally a Zulu timeline or something like that.
Yeah.
That would work for me as
Yeah.
well.
And then I thought I'd document a little bit about maybe the house building, because it's something interesting. It doesn't. I don't think everyone has to limit their channels to 100% books, all the time. But obviously, as long as most of it is, I think that's fine. And then the event I will run, which I'm looking forward to. I haven't made any announcements again about it yet, but actually, I had a message yesterday from Jack, the Rambling Raconteur, about it. It will be in November, very likely, which will be the World Cup for football or soccer. And I've done it twice already. I did the European Cup last summer, and we did the African Cup of Nations in January, February, and in November will be the Football World Cup start in Qatar. And what we do there is I will obviously invite people to join, and when they join, I will pop their names into a hat, and then I pop the names of the country into another hat, and I pull out one name, I pull out the country, and so what happens then is you are assigned that country for as long as that country is in the competition. And what you do is you will read something. Now, because of the nature of the competition, it's not a huge amount of time. So no one expects anyone to read a 500-page novel. You can read, a newspaper article, anything, but generally either by an author of that country or about that country. The kind of caveat is if your country, when your country plays its match, if they lose, you then have to read something, however small, from the country that beat them. Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, you can theoretically, if your team wins every match, you only read one thing. You don't have to read anything else. But of course, as we all love books, a lot of people are quite happy to have a lot to read. So yeah, and then basically, when you get to the knockout stages, you are then assigned the country that knocked you out. So, if England play France and you've got England, but England lose to France, then you'll be reading something from France in the group stages. If that happens later on, then England's gone, and now your team would be France, for example. And it maybe sounds convoluted and a bit complicated, but it's proved quite fun, and the conversation and stuff around it. And when we did it for the Euros last year, it was great fun. We had a lot of Americans with us, which was really great, who hadn't necessarily watched football very much or soccer, and they really got into it. Yeah, I mean, and by the time we did the African Nations Cup, a couple of them had even got that package on their cable TV so they could watch it for the month, and keep up with it. And we all read stuff which we would never have read. I mean, I can't remember now which country I had. I think it was the Gambia. Who's read a book from the Gambia generally? But I did, and it was great. And then of course the Gambia didn't win all their matches, so I had to read books from whoever else beat them. But generally my tactic with it is I try to read all the books of the countries in my group anyway. Yeah, because why not? I try to read something from every game that my team will play because I want to. So yeah, so that's the thing that will come up on my channel, but that won't be till November. There might be something before that, but I haven't planned it. I've just decided, get through the last 2.5 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks of school, and then we'll see what happens.
No, that sounds like a fantastic thing. I'd be willing to join that as long as if I don't have to watch the football games, I'm in.
You don't have to. You don't have to at all. You know.
Yeah, no, I might be interested in that because I do like the idea of that, especially the African ones. That would be interesting to explore African literature, fiction, and even nonfiction. But
Yeah, I mean, what was so nice was just those people who either didn't like football or didn't watch it or didn't know anything about it started watching it because you're watching it together. Like we were all on Voxer in different parts of the world at the same time, watching the same matches.
that can make a difference.
And you're talking about it, and it was,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in the European one last year, one of the Danish players basically suffered a massive heart attack on the field. And we were just wondering what, but it was quite traumatic watching it. But you knew, it was great that otherwise I'd have been sitting here on my own watching it. That would, wouldn't have been very nice. But I'm talking with Jack and Faith from Faith and Books and others, while we're watching this thing, like, what the hell's happened? Is he all right? And it was yeah, it was Greg as well from Barter Horde. He's a big football fan, and it was just nice. It was this kind of camaraderie watching it, and then of course, because I mean, as I say, I live alone pretty much, so even I'm watching this thing, I didn't feel like I was alone. It was nice. So
no, it sounds good. Sounds good. No, it sounds like you got a few things. It'd be fun to watch the videos of your house building as well. See that go on, and but thank you very much for being here. And if you just hold on a bit for Mark, but I just wanted to say that as this is the inaugural edition of Desert Island Books, and every Sunday I will hopefully be putting up a video of another booktuber that we go through the same thing. So 8 books, an album, and a luxury item. And if you're a booktuber and want to give this a try, then contact me either in the comments or my email will be down below. But again, thanks very much, Mark, and I will see you in BookTube land.
Thanks.
Take care.